This is the Succeed in Business podcast. The podcast is inspired by a book titled Succeed in Business, Learn from Your Business Failures and Succeed. The book shares practical information on how to find inspiration in humble beginnings to become a successful entrepreneur. Through this book, you will learn that starting small is always the best way, and if you fail, you are equipped enough to start again. It also provides nuggets at the end that you need to read daily to know how to navigate challenges in your small business.
Hello everyone, my name is Mpho Nenweli, and this is the Succeed in Business podcast. This episode is aimed at introducing this beautiful podcast that I will be doing and sharing a lot of experience from myself as an entrepreneur and other people who are entrepreneurs in South Africa and in Africa broadly. This podcast will bring the best in you. Failure is inspiration. Success is within your reach. Do not give up. So the purpose of this particular podcast is to share lessons, like I've already indicated, on how to start and run small businesses in Africa, and also in South Africa in particular, where I'm based at the moment. I also want to share experiences on how to identify business partners in order to avoid problems. How also do you navigate corruption to ensure that your business succeeds? I will also tie up the issue of mental health and business. And this is basically to create a linkage on how do you ensure that you run your business without compromising your health. I'll use a lot of my personal experience to link the two. Running a business is a very high pressure type of life. There's a lot of things that can happen to your health in the process, and those things can be managed if we share experiences. I'll also use this podcast to identify business opportunities within the space of tendering, both in government and in the private sector. Consulting will be one of the areas that I will explore as a very exciting space of business where you can enter with very minimal barriers of entry. You just need a laptop and your own knowledge. I'll share experiences in particular to my starting of businesses within the space of environment or environmental management, focusing on issues such as environmental impact assessment, relocation action plans, and issues such as climate change. So I will also look at the issue of manufacturing, drawing from my experience from failures that I've had within the manufacturing of leather products, the manufacturing of paint here in South Africa, and the connections I've made on the internet with somebody called Mazi Pascal in Nigeria, who has created a network throughout Africa of sharing experience, really at very low cost, where he shares the receipts for making paint, and people can discuss whatever challenges with him on the platform that he has set up. And then the other thing also, I'll look at retail, my side of selling the paint, opening a small shop, how to deal with theft, lazy employees, and all sorts of challenges that retail brings. My endeavor into franchising, which also led to some interesting failures. I'll draw some experiences there to ensure that entrepreneurs or people who want to be entrepreneurs who intend to buy a franchise understand what is a franchise, what are the risks that you put yourself into, what is it that you're buying, because in most cases in franchises, some of the franchises really are just a name, and there's quite a serious rip-off because there's not really much value that you get after you pay, and 90% of the odds are stacked against you in a franchise agreement. The owners of the franchise want to make maximum profit from you. You become their slave in some form. But in some cases, there are also very beautiful successes within the franchising environment that I would love to point out so that we don't just throw out the baby with the bathwater. I'll also look at farming with my legal experience, animal farming in particular, not about plants or any other commodities. Those are some of the things that I will discuss in this particular podcast. And I think it will be exciting. You will love it. And the primary focus of my podcast is small businesses, startups, emerging entrepreneurs within the African continent. Obviously, drawing interest from Africans who are located in all parts of the world. And that is my mission that I think this podcast is going to achieve. And I'm excited that you can lend an ear and we can be able to put together our resources, both intellectual, human, and capital, and we build something exciting within the business space as Africans, using this podcast to stir, excitement, to ensure that we get our, interest in business cultivated from the young people, to the old people, the whole spectrum, throughout all the countries in Africa. The podcast will also explore opportunities within the space of agro-processing, property development, drawing also on my experiences in running multi-million rand property development for residential purposes here in South Africa within estates, in particular here in Pretoria, where I'm based in South Africa. So I'll share experiences there. What are the things that you can look up to, the profitability, and what are the things that we can avoid? And one of the primary aspects that made me to also do this podcast is to find ways to unite Africans in business throughout the continent and in the diaspora. I want to bridge the gap between Africans doing business, both in the continent, persuade Africans in the diaspora to come home, to the motherland of the continent, and really add value, bring their resources that are so much needed here. And resources, I don't necessarily mean capital. These resources can mean, your intellectual expertise, your skills. Bring those skills here, and we can do something exciting in the continent. The continent is in need of development, and you not being away and just pointing fingers at the suffering of your own, brothers and sisters or parents is not good. We cannot rely on the West for job opportunities forever. We cannot rely on the West to come to Africa and create job opportunities for us. We need to be involved and put things into our own hands. We need to know that there's a lot of wealth in our African heritage. And that is in medicine, that is in tourism, that is in food, that is in architecture, that is in fashion. Let's tap into this heritage and make sure that it becomes a viable businesses, small businesses from all walks of life. Let's pull our dollars, our small cents, wherever we are, and collaborate and produce something exciting. I'm gonna be pushing much more about the issue of collaboration. Let's stop the issue of, becoming too self-obsessed and greedy. There's enough, the cake is big enough for us to share. It's big enough for everyone to get a piece. So there's no need for one individual to get everything. So I just want to remind Africans that this is the richest continent in the world. We've got all the resources. You talk about water, we talk about fish, you talk about fertile land, minerals. There's quite a lot of things that are available for us and within reach. Some of the places you have to just dig your minerals, which is just on the surface without really much effort. So let's galvanize our energy and do something exciting in business. Let's stop being dependent on other races for producing our food, our clothes, our books, everything that we need to run our lives with. So it's not really a good thing. So we have got so much greatness. There's something that we have lost, which we need to reclaim. Africa is a home of wonders. For example, the pyramids in Egypt, the Great Zimbabwe. We have got serious architecture towns, knowledge on medicine that has been researched for thousands of years, things that work. So it seems like as the generation went further and the issues of colonialism came into the fold, we lost our edge in technology, our edge in being self-reliant, our edge in having that sense of self-confidence and belief that we can run enterprises that are huge. We have the capability. There is history that proves that people did wonders, manufactured things, cut rocks to precision to build cities such as Great Zimbabwe, which still stand today. And that shows that Africans are highly capable. We just need to reclaim that sense of confidence and say we can do something in business. The other thing also which we need to look at and take advantage is the fact that in Africa, as we speak now, our population is close to 1.4 billion people. This population is projected to grow to around 2.5 billion people in 2050. This is a huge population that will need goods, services, all sorts of products. You can manufacture literally anything. You can become a billionaire in Africa. You can also come here and not even manufacture anything. Source products from small manufacturers who are doing a lot of clothing, the processing of fish or raw materials that is already available, which people are mining within their communities. There are things that are quite very exciting that you can just come and tap into. More so for the people who are also outside of our continent, whose value of their currency can multiply 17 times when they come here. It can multiply 1,000 times if they come here. So this whole idea of just sitting in the diaspora, struggling with the weather and all sorts of horrible things, being abused, seeing that the resources that you have are too minimal to do anything, that's completely not true. Link up to the continent, travel, identify countries, do your research, link up with people, come down to the continent and identify business opportunities. Do not rush. Avoid scammers. They are reputable people. Establish companies there in the US that can do due diligence so that you can be able to come home and invest. You can be able to mobilize resources in the diaspora, which can come here and do all sorts of wonders. You can open banks, you can open a lot of things. There's so much money that people in the diaspora have, including money that is found in churches. That is really heaps and heaps of money that can be brought here and create all sorts of development, employment opportunities, address poverty in the continent, empower women, empower youth, enable government to deliver, develop infrastructure that is much needed, build schools, build universities, tech companies. There's quite a lot of exciting things. And there's a lot of innovation in the streets here in Africa that we can tap into and grow into amazing businesses. We just need to come together, unite, have the self-belief, and go back and draw from the heritage that we've been given and the belief that we are of greatness and we can do good in business. We don't have to depend on other people to do things for us, manufacture literally everything from us, from the food we eat in the morning to the food we eat when we sleep, to the clothes that we wear, to the blankets that we use, to the point that we don't produce anything in the running of our affairs. That's really a disgrace. And it's something that I feel we strongly need to condemn. Africans need to wake up and say, I'm wearing a cloth that has been manufactured in Africa. I just ate food that has been farmed by one of my brothers. I just came from a shop that is run by one of our people. I just flew a jet that is owned by one of our people. That is the spirit that I want to inspire without being racist, without being offensive to any other people. Other people have done well as a race. We need to come up, pull our legs and work hard. We must be willing to work hard. Long hours, capacitate ourselves with skills, go and learn in other developing countries and bring together the knowledge. Learn from each other in the continent. We must not be arrogant to say we don't want to learn from this one, from this country, from this one, from this country. It's not taking us anywhere. Let's tap on each other's expertise. Let's respect each other. Let's be humble enough to learn from each other. Let's draw from each other's strength and build something exciting within the business environment. Let's also give space for the small entrepreneur on the street. Let's capacitate the small entrepreneur on the street. Let's provide resources to the small entrepreneur industries. Let's tap into the ideas of the businesses that are being run on the streets in our cities, in our villages. I think there's something exciting that I will be discussing in this podcast. It will make it worth listening to. It will make it exploratory. We can bring a lot of innovative ideas and take this continent forward within the space of business. Our population is a very big advantage to us. In other countries in the world, they will be struggling from aging, meaning that they will have older people who are sickly without the young people to look after them. It's going to be a serious problem in countries in the West, some countries in Europe, because there's a decline in fertility. But in Africa, we're having a growing continent. The amount of people is growing. And it is anticipated that by 2050, we will be having around 1.2 billion people who are young or youth. So this youthful population, which is described as a demographic dividend in demography, it's something that we need to tap into. This energy that is going to be available to us, we need to harness it for the good of our continent and our countries by running enterprises that are innovative and exciting. Young people have the ability to work for 19, 20 hours. Let's tap into that. This is a potential that we're being given, as a continent, and we need to use it. One of the things that I will also explore in the podcast is the issue of capacity building. And here I'll talk about the link between business and education. What is the value of ensuring that you study to be able to run your small business well? What are the things that you need to study in order to really make sure that you've got a sound footing that can enable you to run a successful enterprise? Education is very important. We need to make sure that we, as entrepreneurs, we start businesses, but we scale ourselves at the same time so that we can be able to develop the relevant technologies we need. We can have the necessary skills to analyze if our businesses are performing or failing. What are the interventions that we're going to do? How do we strategize to compete against huge multinationals that come here to occupy the market? What is it that we can do, which is exciting? So I will look into, giving podcasts in relation to capacity building on areas such as value proposition, business planning. What is the business plan? Or what are the components of a business plan? What is the business canvas, as an example? I will also look at giving a podcast on the triple bottom line, running small businesses in an environmental friendly way. That is considering the issues of planet, people, and profit. How do we create a balance, a harmony in those particular legs? People, planet, and profit. I'll also have an in-depth look at risk management. How do you identify a risk? How do you identify ways to prevent the risk? How do you, manage the risk that is emanating in the business? Or how do you make sure that you succeed despite the odds that you face in the environment in which you're operating or the industry in which you're operating? I will look at stakeholder mapping, identifying different stakeholders that are relevant to your business. That can be community, that can be your government, that can be civil society, your customers. Those are the stakeholders that are very key. You need to understand who are the stakeholders that your business is touching. Mentorship opportunities is one of the areas I'll touch, which is really very important. I've struggled to find mentors, in particular here in South Africa. I think in Africa, people who are successful need to really be involved in the setting up of mentorship, platforms and facilities, so that we can be able to do something exciting there. I will also look at identifying available conferences, seminars, and other platforms that are very important in building capacity for emerging entrepreneurs and their employees. I will also really try to give interesting insight on the books that I've read that have inspired me and enabled me to formulate business ideas, strategies, what are the inspirational reviews that I can give to share with other entrepreneurs, and really also provide a very important, insight on the fact that it is important as an entrepreneur to continuously read about other entrepreneurs, their successes, their failures, what are they doing, what are the new trends. It's very important to keep oneself up to date. Attending conferences related to your industry, that's very key. So as Africans, we need to create these particular places, the markets that should be there on weekends for people to sell their produce, the institutions or the online platforms where we just have speakers, discussing issues, interviewing are the best amongst us to share their views on platforms such as YouTube. These are the things that are very important that I feel we need to really take into consideration in running our small businesses. I will also be looking at how do you brand your small business. Branding is quite very important. In the beginning, when you don't have experience, your image is everything. The way you present yourself in terms of the way you dress, the way you create a logo for your business, it's quite very important. So I'll discuss how do you position yourself through a branding to ensure that people take you serious from day one. Issues of marketing and sales are some of the issues that I'll look at. Information management are things that I'm going to look at. Access to finance in South Africa, I'm also going to be looking into that. I will also be looking at the issue of South-South cooperation. This is quite very important. That is basically looking at what can we learn from developing countries such as ours. And this includes Brazil, India, China. These are the countries where people are doing quite a lot of innovative things, producing things from bamboo, renewable, using waste to produce clothes, using waste to produce buildings. There's quite a lot of exciting things that are being done. Finally, I would want to point out that the power is in our hands, as the former President Nelson Mandela once said. We have the power, the resources are at our disposal. We have got a growing population, we've got exciting opportunities, we've got the resources, the raw materials. If we unite and pull together as Africans, we can realize greatness in our business. But the biggest trick is to ensure that we fight the scourge of individualism. I think that's the biggest poison we have. The me, myself, and I attitude is killing us as Africans. Collaboration is the way forward. No matter what tribe you are, no matter where you sit in the continent, which country you are, the whole attitude of being negative towards each other needs to be brought to an end if we want to succeed in business. We need to work very closely. The hostility of being against each other when the person comes to establish a business from another country into another country needs to come to an end if you want to build something great in the continent. Let's also unite so that we can talk to the politicians to create one currency for the continent so that you can trade from here, Cape to Cairo, without having to use different currencies from one country to another, which even the politicians that have those currencies in their countries don't even believe in them because they put their savings somewhere else in dollars and other currencies. So we need to, if we don't unite, we won't have this type of things being addressed by politicians. Opening of borders, the free flow of goods and people need to be, enabled. Countries feel like if they don't charge for visas, they will not be able to generate enough income. But the actual flow of goods and resources within the countries will be enough to enrich countries. To restrict each other from moving is killing the continent. And we need to learn from continents such as Europe, where the countries have come together, created one currency, and they are trading together, and they are powerful as a unified force. In closing, I would want to say this podcast is going to be exciting. You're going to love it. I'm going to share a lot of knowledge, but I'm going to bring a lot of other people from all parts of the continent and in the diaspora Africans will talk in this particular podcast to share knowledge on business, and in particular with a strong focus on small and emerging enterprises, the bottom of the pyramid. That's where the wealth is, as articulated in the book by Professor Prahalad, when he said, let's look at the fortune at the bottom of the pyramid. As pointed out, this podcast will bring the best in you. Failure is inspiration. Success is within your reach. Do not give up. And I thank you. I wish you the best.
If you want to get a copy of the book, contact Mpho Nenweli at 082-567-3099 on WhatsApp and on email mpho@anisa.co.za. The book costs 259 rands including courier.